Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam. I'm about to get started on a new Nkisi. Let's get a look at this guy. I'm going to be working out of a 2 foot tall by 1 foot wide section of cedar. And because this is from a live tree, it's going to have some cracks in it and some other issues we're going to have to work around as we make this happen. I don't have a way to set up my camera so you guys can see me making the cuts, but I'm going to keep you updated with each of the cuts I make. Alright, so we have our first cuts to start to balance out the shape of the wood, to define the space I'm going to be working within. Time to move on to the next step. I've laid out the general size of the front view of the Nkisi. So now I need to make the cuts to start to define where the head is going to be. So now that I've defined those cuts, I need to do cross cuts to remove the extra stock that's to the left and the right. Man, I wish you guys could smell this cedar absolutely fresh like this. It is just amazing. So with these cuts made, we're starting to reveal the amazing wood that's hidden away inside this section of log. This Nkisi is going to be the most astonishing color when we're done with it. And like I say, the smell of this absolutely fresh cedar is just amazing. Now I need to lay out some of the other cuts, working to try to minimize the cracks and defects that are in the wood. So my next cut most likely be here to eliminate this inclusion that we have in it. Alright, so I've made that further cut to eliminate that inclusion and to start to bring forward the starting shape of the Nkisi. There's a lot of really good wood right there in this cut, and I'm actually going to give that to the gentleman who lives next door. He makes pens on his lathe, and he will appreciate a big chunk of beautiful wood like that. So this particular Nkisi is going to have his hands on his hips. So I've started the shaping to allow that to happen. And I've got wood stock that I have to remove. I'll do that by making one cut here and one cut here, and then cuts that angle out, that angle of the arm. All right. Then after that we get working towards the legs, but that's the next step. We're gonna find the Nkisi that lives in this piece of wood. With that basic cut and shape cut out, we're now starting to make some real progress. Of course, from the side, it's still just a chunk of wood, but step by step, closer by closer. You know, it is incredibly hot out here. It's like 100 degrees. I am in the shade, but whew, this is some warm work. So as per tradition, this particular Nkisi is actually going to be leaning forward a bit with his hands on his hips to signify that he's belligerent and he's ready to defend. And so now I have to make the cut that will remove the material from this side over here to kind of get the plane of his chest with that slight forward cant. This part of the process will actually be done in 3 steps. The first step was to cut a plane that defines the front of the Nkisi. The second cut will be a horizontal cut that comes into the depth at which I am going to make my angular cut. And the third cut is, of course, that angular cut. So with that basic guidance cut made, now I'll be removing excess material from the back side of the Nkisi. With the material cleared from the rear, we now have the basic back silhouette of the Nkisi, the basic front silhouette of the Nkisi. But now we have this lower section. And since this Nkisi's knees are going to be slightly bent, I'm going to need an angled cut this way, an angled cut that way, and another angled cut to define his feet. With the fundamental cuts done in order to define his feet and kind of get me the placement of his knees so I don't end up removing too much material. Now I've got material I've got to move from right and left where his basically his hips and legs are going to be, to reduce the amount of material there. All the work that I do when making an Nkisi takes place outside in the Chibila, the sacred grove. We have the water running there, and there's the Mamun Sono, that's the garden of sacred plants. And there's the fires, and I shouldn't give up too much of my environment, but just to see that not only is this being made by a priest, but it's being made in a sacred place, so that every aspect of these Nkisis is coming to you from the sacred, not just some guy who carves a piece of wood into a particular shape and sells it. One of a kind, bespoke, custom made by a priest in a sacred space. That's a little hard to come by. Oh, I got one more cut to make and then I'm done for today, man. This heat is just murderous. So that is all for today. I always remove less material than I expect that I need to remove. That saves me from mistakes and allows me to really be careful with what I'm doing. We've got him to the point now that come next working session, I'll actually be moving to a much smaller chainsaw, an actual handheld little one-handed chainsaw, to do some angle cuts to help refine some things. And good work for the day, but like I said, it is just brutally hot here in North Carolina, and so I'm gonna call it a day, clean up this mess, give me a shower, and slam me some freezy pops. Hi, salam alaikum.